It was a quiet Tuesday evening, the kind where the world outside fades into the background, leaving nothing but the hum of the air conditioner and the soft glow of bedroom lamps. I had just gotten home after a long day, one of those endless stretches of meetings, emails, and forced miles that left me drained. My wife, Jessica, had already gone to bed, her side of the house wrapped in stillness. I loosened my tie as I walked into our bedroom, expecting nothing but the usual routine, change into something comfortable, maybe grab a drink before calling it a night. But the moment I pulled open the closet door, I knew something was off. There it was, a crisp white dress shirt. Not mine. It hung neatly on a wooden hanger, as if it had every right to be there. But I knew better. I knew the clothes in my closet like I knew the back of my hand, and this shirt wasn't part of my wardrobe. The brand was expensive, the kind I recognized because my business partner, Ryan, wore them all the time. I reached for it, my fingers grazing the smooth fabric, and immediately noticed something else, his cologne. That familiar, musky scent clung to the shirt, faint but unmistakable. I barely wore cologne, and when I did, it sure as hell wasn't this one. For a moment, I stood frozen, my pulse pounding in my ears. The quiet ticking of the bedroom clock filled the space between my thoughts, and the weight of the discovery pressed against my chest like a slow-building storm. Jessica lay beneath the covers, her breathing steady, undisturbed. I watched her for a second, studying the peaceful rise and fall of her shoulders. The shirt felt heavier in my hands now, like a burden I hadn't been prepared to carry. I wasn't a man prone to paranoia, but I was a man who trusted his instincts. And right now, every instinct I had was telling me this wasn't a mistake. I draped the shirt over the chair by the window, where the moonlight cast sharp angles over the expensive fabric. My mind raced, replaying the past few weeks, searching for anything I might have overlooked. Ryan had been in our house plenty of times, business dinners, casual drinks, the occasional weekend barbecue. We had built our company from the ground up, partners in every sense of the word. And until this moment, trust had never been an issue. But now I wasn't so sure. I stepped out of the bedroom, careful not to wake her, and made my way to the kitchen. The soft hum of the refrigerator filled the silence as I poured myself a glass of whiskey, the amber liquid swirling under the dim light. I took a slow sip, letting the burn settle in my throat. Had I missed the signs? Had there been clues right in front of me, moments that should have made me pause? I thought about Ryan, about the way he always seemed a little too comfortable around Jessica, the way she laughed at his jokes, the casual touches on her arm that I had brushed off as nothing. Maybe they were nothing, or maybe they weren't. I wasn't angry. Not yet. That would come later, after I had the proof. Right now, I was focused. My grip tightened around the glass as I came to a decision. Tomorrow, I would talk to Ryan first. Not Jessica. Not yet. She was too good at keeping her composure, too careful with her words. If I confronted her now, she'd find a way to twist the narrative, to make me doubt what I had seen with my own eyes. But Ryan? He was easier to read. I smirked to myself as I took another sip of whiskey. Tomorrow was going to be interesting. The next morning came faster than I expected. I hadn't slept, not really. I had spent the night staring at the ceiling, running through every possible explanation, every possible lie. Jessica was still asleep when I got dressed and grabbed my car keys. She lay curled beneath the blankets, her face soft and relaxed, like she had nothing to worry about. I stood there for a moment, watching her, wondering how she could sleep so soundly when my entire world had just cracked open. By the time I arrived at the office, the building was mostly empty. I like coming in early. It gave me time to think before the usual chaos of the day began. Ryan was already there, sitting at his desk with a coffee in one hand and his laptop open in front of him. "Morning, man," he said without looking up. His fingers moved across the keyboard like he had nothing to hide, like he wasn't the man whose shirt had been hanging in my closet just hours ago. I stood in the doorway for a moment, watching him. His tie was slightly crooked, his hair messier than usual, like he had rushed through his morning routine. It wasn't anything out of the ordinary. Ryan had always been the kind of guy who thrived on effortless charm. But today, that charm irritated the hell out of me. "Morning," I said, stepping inside and closing the door behind me. I made sure the click of the lock was loud enough for him to notice. He finally looked up, his smile faltering just slightly. "What's with the serious face? Everything okay?" I did not answer right away. Instead, I pulled out a chair across from Ryan's desk and sat down, my eyes locked on his. He shifted in his seat, his confidence wavering just slightly. That was the thing about Ryan. He was good at playing it cool, but under pressure, he cracked like cheap glass. "I found something of yours," I said finally, my voice flat. Ryan frowned. "What do you mean?" I leaned back, keeping my expression unreadable. "A shirt, white, expensive brand. Smells like your cologne." And it was hanging in my closet. His reaction was subtle but telling. A quick blink, the way his fingers tensed slightly around his coffee mug. It lasted no more than a second, but I caught it. "You sure it's mine?" he asked, forcing chuckle. "Man, I lose stuff all the time. Maybe I left it at your place after one of those poker nights." I let the silence stretch between us. His smile faltered. "Let's cut the crap, Ryan," I said, my voice like steel. "I know you. You're not careless with your stuff. So, let's skip the part where you insult my intelligence and get to the truth." His mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. He ran a hand through his hair, pretending to be amused, but his eyes darted to the door like a man looking for an exit. He knew he was trapped. "Look," he said after a long pause, "it is not what you think." I folded my arms. "Then tell me, what exactly am I thinking?" He sighed heavily, rubbing his temples like this conversation was somehow exhausting him. "It was a mistake, man. Just once. It happened, but it did not mean anything. Just once," I repeated, letting the words sink in, as if that was supposed to make it better. The thing was, I did not feel heartbroken. Maybe that part would come later, but right now, I just felt cold, detached, like I was watching this happen to someone else. Because I knew one thing with certainty, this was not an accident. I pushed my chair back, standing up. "You do not accidentally sleep with another man's wife, Ryan. You made a choice." His face paled. "I swear, I was not trying to ruin anything between you two. But you did." I cut him off. "You ruined it the second you decided my marriage meant less to you than whatever the hell this was." Ryan opened his mouth to argue, but thought better of it. He knew there was no way to spin this in his favor. "Does she know I found out?" I asked. He hesitated, then shook his head. "No." "Good." I turned toward the door. "Do not tell her. Do not warn her. I will handle that myself." I did not wait for a response. I just walked out, leaving him sitting there in his guilt. I had gotten what I came for. The drive home felt longer than usual. Maybe it was because my thoughts were moving faster than my car, or maybe it was because I was trying to keep myself from making a decision I would regret. Jessica thought she had gotten away with it. She had tucked her secret neatly between freshly washed sheets, folded it into morning routines, and buried it under goodnight kisses. She had no idea that I had already unearthed it. When I pulled into the driveway, the house looked just like it had every other day. Calm, normal. It was almost laughable. I stepped inside, and the warmth of the house wrapped around me, soft and familiar. The scent of fresh coffee lingered in the air, and from the kitchen, I heard the gentle clatter of dishes. Then I heard her humming. Jessica was humming. That was what got me. That light, airy tune floating through the air as if everything was perfectly fine. As if she had not just thrown a grenade into our marriage. I took my time hanging up my coat, forcing myself to move slowly. I could not afford to let my anger drive this conversation. No, I needed control. Emotions would only give her a chance to manipulate the situation. When I walked into the kitchen, she was rinsing out a coffee mug, her back to me. She was wearing a gray sweater, one of those loose ones that draped off her shoulder, exposing the curve of her collarbone. She looked so effortlessly put together, like she had not spent last night in another man's arms. "Morning," she said without turning around. I grabbed a glass from the cabinet, filled it with water, and leaned against the counter. "Morning." She finally turned to face me, her smile easy and natural. "How was work?" I watched her, letting the silence stretch out longer than necessary, just long enough to make her wonder. Then I said, "I had an interesting conversation with Ryan." For just a second, half a second, she paused. It was small, but I caught it. The slight flicker in her expression, the momentary stiffness in her posture. Most people would not have noticed, but I was not most people. "Oh," she said, her voice light, almost curious. "What about?" I kept my gaze steady. "We talked about the shirt." Her breath hitched, so small, so quick, that if I had not been watching for it, I might have missed it. But I was watching. She recovered fast, tilting her head with a confused smile. "What shirt?" I exhaled slowly, setting my glass down on the counter with deliberate ease. "You know exactly what shirt." Her fingers tightened slightly around the dish towel in her hands, but she played it cool. "I really do not." "Do not do that," I said, my voice calm but firm. "Do not stand there and pretend you have no idea what I'm talking about. I found a shirt in our closet last night." Jessica blinked, her mouth parting slightly, like she had not expected me to hit her with it so directly. Then, right before my eyes, I saw the wheels start turning in her head. She was not scrambling for an excuse. No, she was calculating, trying to decide which version of the truth would give her the most room to work with. I had seen this before, not with her, but in business. When people got caught in a lie, they did not confess outright. They started small. They admitted to just enough to seem honest, but not enough to give themselves away completely. And I was not going to let that happen. So I did what she least expected. I let the silence do the work. I stood there waiting, watching, letting the weight of her own guilt press down on her. And finally, after what felt like an eternity, she swallowed hard and said, "I can't explain." I nodded slowly. "I am sure you can. But here is the thing. I do not want an explanation. I want the truth." Her eyes darted away for just a moment before coming back to mine. And that was all the confirmation I needed. She was about to lie to me again. Her smile did not waver. In fact, it grew slightly like she was amused by the whole thing. "What shirt?" she asked, tilting her head just enough to sell the act. I almost admired her composure. Most people would have fumbled, stammered, maybe even looked away. But Jessica? She played it like a seasoned pro, acting as if I had just mentioned the weather. "The one hanging in our closet," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "The one that smells like Ryan's cologne." She pursed her lips, pretending to think. "Oh, that. I meant to tell you. He left it here the last time he was over, and I forgot to return it." Her lie was smooth. So smooth that, if I had not already spoken to Ryan, I might have second-guessed myself. But I knew the truth. "You mean the shirt he was wearing while you two were drunk, having a good time?" I asked, letting my voice harden. That caught her off guard, just for a moment. I saw it in the way her fingers tensed against the countertop. But she recovered quickly, lowering the mug she had been holding and crossing her arms. Her expression shifted, not to guilt, not even to fear, but to mild annoyance. "Is that what he told you?" she said, her tone light, almost playful. Ryan always exaggerates things. And there it was, the first crack in her carefully constructed armor. She was not denying it outright. Instead, she was trying to minimize it, trying to turn it into something small enough for me to dismiss. I took a slow step closer. "So, you are admitting it happened?" She shrugged, as if the whole thing was a minor inconvenience. "It was nothing. A mistake. I did not think you would get so worked up over it. Nothing. A mistake." Her words fanned the flames burning inside me, but I did not let it show. I kept my expression unreadable, my voice steady. "You did not think I would get worked up over you sleeping with my business partner?" I repeated. Jessica sighed, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear like this was just another petty argument. "You're making this a bigger deal than it needs to be. It was one night, and it did not mean anything. I did not plan it, and it is not like I am leaving you for him." Her lack of remorse was staggering. No apology, no real explanation, no effort to make me believe she even felt guilty. To her, this was just another moment that would pass, another bump in the road we could smooth over. "You really think this is just going to go away?" I asked, gripping the counter a little tighter. "It could," she said with a small smirk. "If you let it." I almost laughed, but nothing about this was funny. "And you think I'm the kind of man who lets things like this slide?" I asked. She did not answer immediately. Instead, she leaned against the counter, her gaze locked onto mine, calm as ever. "I think you are a smart man," she said smoothly. A man who knows when to move on. We have a good life, do we not? Why ruin it over something that does not matter? Her words were deliberate, calculated. She was not asking me to stay. She was daring me to leave. I let out a slow breath, my eyes never leaving hers. Then, without another word, I turned and walked out of the kitchen, leaving her standing there with her smug little smile. She thought she had won this round. She thought I would retreat, that I would stew in my anger for a few days before eventually sweeping this under the rug for the sake of peace. She had no idea what was coming. I sat in the living room, the cool leather of the couch beneath me as I stared out the window. Outside, everything looked normal. Cars moving along the street, people walking their dogs, the occasional jogger pacing through the neighborhood. The world kept turning, indifferent to the war brewing inside my house. Jessica did not follow me. She assumed I needed time to cool off, that I was like every other man who swallowed his pride for the sake of stability. But I was not every other man. I would not let this slide. The plan was already forming in my mind, piece by piece, like a puzzle coming together. I had spent years reading people, studying their behavior, anticipating their next moves before they even made them. Jessica was no different. She thrived in chaos. She knew how to manipulate emotions, how to twist the truth until reality itself became questionable. If I confronted her the way she expected me to, she would control the narrative. She would twist my anger against me, make herself the victim, and by the time the dust settled, she would be the one demanding an apology. No, I could not play her game. I had to control the board. Step 1. Cut off the access she thought she had. Jessica was comfortable because she believed I was predictable. She thought I would yell, slam a few doors, and then sulk in silence until the anger burned out. She expected me to react emotionally. So I wouldn't. Instead, I would be strategic. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my messages until I found Ryan's number. My thumb hovered over the screen before I finally typed. You said it was just one night. Are you sure about that? I hit send and waited. A few minutes passed before my phone buzzed. Yeah, it was a mistake, man. I swear, it didn't happen again. Liar. I could feel it in my gut. Ryan was hiding something. He had already admitted to crossing a line. What was stopping him from lying again? I typed another message. And if I asked Jessica the same question, would she say the same thing? Another pause. This time longer. Then, she might tell you something different. There it was. I clenched my jaw, the pieces falling into place. Ryan had panicked when I confronted him earlier. He had not had time to coordinate his story with Jessica. Now, he was trying to backpedal, trying to soften the inevitable blow. Jessica, on the other hand, she thought she had everything under control. She still believed she was one step ahead. She had no idea that, as of this moment, she was already losing. I took a deep breath and exhaled slowly. Tomorrow, I will make my next move. And this time, Jessica would not see it coming. I leaned back against the couch, staring at my phone screen as I read the text over and over again. Spending the weekend with Jess. Girls' night, wine, movies, the whole thing. Don't wait up. Love you. It had seemed harmless at the time. Routine, even. I had not questioned it because I had no reason to. But now, knowing what I knew, that message felt like a neon sign blinking lie in my face. I took a deep breath and let the anger settle inside me, letting it simmer instead of boil over. Losing control was not an option. Not yet. I had to be careful with my next move. Lauren was still out with her friends, probably laughing and sipping cocktails, completely unaware that her carefully constructed world was beginning to crack. She still thought she had the upper hand, that I was either clueless or too weak to do anything about it. But tonight had proved something important. I had already started dismantling her safety net. Ethan was out, and now it was time to unravel her web of lies. I pulled up Jessica's number in my contacts. I had only met her a handful of times. She was one of those social climbers who clung to Lauren like a shadow, always tagging along for expensive lunches and boutique shopping trips. I hesitated for a second, then sent a simple text. Hey, Jess. Quick question. When was the last time Lauren stayed at your place? The 3 dots appeared almost immediately. Hey, Tom. It has been a while. Maybe last year? Why? I exhaled slowly, gripping my phone tighter. No reason. Just making sure. Appreciate it. Of course. Everything okay? I didn't respond. I had what I needed. Jessica was either completely unaware of Lauren's lies, or she was a terrible actress. Either way, it confirmed my suspicion. Lauren had not been at a girls' night that weekend. She had been somewhere else, and I was going to find out exactly where. By the time Lauren walked through the front door, I was already waiting. She stepped inside, looking radiant in a way that made my stomach turn. Her hair was slightly tousled like she had been laughing all night, and she smelled faintly of perfume and expensive cocktails. She didn't know her world was about to collapse. "Hey," she said casually, setting her purse on the counter. "You are still up?" I smiled. Just a small, unreadable one. Couldn't sleep. She kicked off her heels and stretched her arms over her head. "You should have come out with us. Jessica was asking about you." "Jessica?" I let the name sit between us for a moment before I spoke. "That's funny," I said, standing up and slipping my hands into my pockets. "Because I texted Jessica tonight." Her hand froze halfway to grabbing a water bottle from the fridge. I caught the flicker of hesitation in her eyes, the quick calculation of what did he ask her? What does he know? Before she forced a laugh. "Oh, what about?" I stepped closer, keeping my expression neutral. "I asked when the last time you stayed at her place was." She blinked, and I saw her entire body stiffen for just a fraction of a second. It was quick, so quick that most people would have missed it. But I didn't. "You asked her that?" she said carefully. "Yeah," I nodded. She said it's in a long time. Definitely not in the past few months. Her mouth opened slightly, as if she was about to come up with something, some excuse, some ridiculous justification. But for the first time in all of this, she was completely caught off guard. I could almost hear the gears turning in her head. "Tom," she finally said, forcing a breathless laugh. "Why would you even ask something like that? Are you checking up on me now?" "Should I be?" I asked, tilting my head. "Because it sounds like you just got caught in another lie." Her eyes narrowed just a bit, just enough for me to see a flash of something beneath the surface. Annoyance. She wasn't scared. She wasn't sorry. She was frustrated. Frustrated that I had caught her. Frustrated that I had started looking into things. Frustrated that I wasn't the passive, trusting husband she had clearly banked on me being. I smiled again, wider this time, because now I knew exactly what I was dealing with. "I don't know why Jessica said that," Lauren said, her voice smooth, practiced. "Maybe she just forgot. We drink a lot of wine when we hang out." I was there. I nodded slowly, watching her spin the lie in real time. "Is that your final answer?" I asked. She blinked. "What? Is that the story you're sticking with?" I clarified. "That you were Jessica's, and she just forgot?" Lauren crossed her arms, the first real crack in her patience showing. "What exactly are you trying to accuse me of, Tom?" I chuckled, shaking my head. "See, that's where you're messing up. I'm not accusing you of anything yet. I'm just asking." Silence stretched between us. For the first time, she didn't have a quick, rehearsed answer. I let that silence sit, let it settle in her chest like a weight she couldn't shake off. Then, finally, I spoke again. "Try again, Lauren," I said, my voice low, controlled. "Where were you that weekend?" She swallowed, her gaze flicking toward the living room like she was looking for an escape. But there was none, and she knew it. The words hit like a slow-moving wrecking ball. Not because I had not already known, but because hearing them aloud, spoken so plainly, made it impossible to deny the full weight of what she had done. I exhaled through my nose, nodding slightly. "Go on," I said, my voice eerily calm. Lauren rubbed her temples, her nails tapping against her forehead like she was trying to summon the right words. "It started months ago," she admitted. "After one of your business trips. You were gone, I was lonely, and Ethan was there." I scoffed, shaking my head. "So that is the excuse. I was working, building a future for us, and you decided to fill the silence with him." "It was not like that," she snapped, then took a deep breath, lowering her voice. "I'm not proud of what I did, Tom, but I need you to understand that it was not planned. It just happened." I let out a dry, humorless laugh. Funny how often people say that when they get caught. Nothing just happens, Lauren. You made choices. Repeatedly. She flinched at my words, but did not deny them. She knew better than to insult my intelligence now. I leaned against the counter, crossing my arms. How long? She swallowed hard, her fingers twitching slightly. Almost a year, she admitted. A slow, burning rage crept through me, steady and controlled. A year. 12 months of lies. And she had been smiling in my face the entire time. Jesus Christ, I muttered, rubbing a hand over my jaw. Lauren sniffed, looking down at the table. I tried to stop it. I really did. I pushed off the counter and took a slow step toward her. No, you did not, I said, my voice low but firm. You try to hide it. That is not the same thing. She closed her eyes briefly, as if she was bracing for the next blow. You are right, she admitted. I should have ended it. But I kept telling myself it did not matter, that it was just a distraction. A distraction, I echoed, tasting the word like poison on my tongue. So what now? You finally feel guilty? Or are you only confessing because you know I was going to figure it out anyway? Tears welled up in her eyes, but I did not let myself feel anything for them. Not yet. I never wanted to hurt you, Tom, she whispered. Yeah? Well, that is exactly what you did. I shot back. And do not tell me it was a mistake. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk from the store. You do not accidentally cheat for a whole damn year. Her face crumpled, but I was not interested in watching her break down, not when I was the one left picking up the pieces of everything she had destroyed. I took a slow breath, forcing myself to stay steady. Does Ethan's wife know? I asked. Her eyes darted to mine, wide and full of fear. No. Then she will, I said simply. Tonight. Lauren shot up from the chair, shaking her head. Tom, please. Do not. I warned, holding up a hand. Do not beg me to keep his secret when neither of you cared about keeping mine. She took a step forward, reaching for me, but I moved before she could touch me. I will tell her, she whispered. Just give me time. You do not have time, I said coldly. You had a year to do the right thing. Now, I am handling it. Her face paled, and she knew there was nothing she could say to stop me. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through my contacts until I found Rebecca Thompson, Ethan's wife. We had met at corporate events, exchanged pleasantries at dinner parties. I had always thought she was a good woman, someone who deserved better than the man she was married to. Turns out, we had something in common. I pressed the call button. Lauren clutched her chest, shaking her head violently. Tom, please. I turned my back to her, the ringing in my ear the only sound I focused on. After a few moments, a soft voice answered. Hello. Rebecca, I said, my voice steady, deliberate. It is Tom. We need to talk. There was a pause, then a wary about what. I glanced over my shoulder at Lauren, who was watching me with wide, helpless eyes. Then, I stepped into the other room, shutting the door behind me. About Ethan, I said, and my wife. By the time I hung up the call, Rebecca knew everything. She had listened in silence, her breathing slow and measured, and when I was done, she had only said one thing. Thank you for telling me. It was the kind of quiet, deadly response that told me Ethan's world was about to implode just as hard as Lauren's. Good. I walked back into the kitchen, where Lauren was still standing in the same spot, her arms wrapped around herself like she was trying to hold herself together. What did she say? She asked softly. I grabbed my jacket off the chair, slipping it on. She said thank you. I replied, my tone flat. Lauren's face fell. What are you going to do? I looked at her, really looked at her. The woman I had trusted. The woman who had slept beside me for years, whispering I love yous while lying through her teeth. I do not know yet, I admitted honestly. But I can promise you one thing, Lauren, this is not over. I turned, heading for the door. Tom, she called, her voice trembling. Do you still love me? I paused, my hand on the doorknob. Then, without turning around, I said the only thing I knew for certain. I do not know anymore. And with that, I walked out, leaving her alone in the mess she had made. This was not the end. This was just the beginning. Lauren stood there, gripping the towel so tightly her knuckles turned white. I could see the storm brewing behind her eyes, the realization that she was losing control, that she wasn't the one dictating how this would end. You think you can just erase me? She asked, her voice sharp but shaking at the edges. I let out a slow breath, tilting my head slightly. Erase you, I repeated, amused by her choice of words. No, Lauren, I'm doing something much worse. I am making sure you matter as little as possible. She swallowed hard, her throat moving visibly. She knew what that meant. You cannot do this, she whispered, shaking her head. I have rights. I am your wife. You are my wife, I corrected. And now? You are nothing but a liability I need to clean up. I stepped toward her, closing the distance between us, so she had to look up at me. Let me explain how this is going to go, I said, my voice calm, measured. You're going to pack your things tonight. You're going to leave quietly. And when the divorce papers arrive, you're going to sign them without so much as a second thought. You'll get nothing. No house, no alimony, nothing. Do you know why? She didn't answer, but her breathing had picked up, her hands trembling against the counter. Because I know everything, I continued. Not just about Ethan, not just about the others, but about the little financial tricks you have been pulling. The hidden expenses, the small withdrawals you thought I wouldn't notice. You have been setting up your escape plan for a while now, haven't you? Her face went pale. Thought you could steal from me and walk away with a safety net. I smirked. Too bad I cut it before you even realized you were falling. Tom, she started, but I raised a hand, cutting her off. I do not want to hear it, I said. I do not care if you thought you deserved more, or if you felt invisible, or whatever excuse you think will make this easier to swallow. You made your choices, and now you get to live with the consequences. I took a step back, giving her room. Now go upstairs and pack. She didn't move. Go, I said again, my voice leaving no room for argument. She stood frozen for a moment longer before finally turning and walking toward the stairs. She was slower than usual, like she was trying to drag this out, but it didn't matter. This was happening, and she knew it. I poured myself a drink as I listened to the quiet shuffle of her footsteps overhead. The sound of drawers opening, the soft rustling of clothes being shoved into a suitcase. It was strange how mundane it all sounded, considering what had just happened. An hour passed before she came back down, a single suitcase rolling behind her. She hesitated at the bottom of the stairs, looking at me like she wanted to say something. Maybe a final plea. Maybe one last attempt to manipulate me into backing down. But she must have seen something in my face, something final, because she closed her mouth before the words ever came out. Instead, she walked toward the door, stopping just as she reached for the handle. Was any of it real? She asked softly, her back still to me. The question hung in the air, heavy and pointless. Maybe, I said, taking a sip of my drink. But it does not matter anymore. She nodded once, then opened the door and stepped out into the cold night. I didn't watch her go. I didn't need to. She was gone. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something close to peace. 2 months later, the divorce papers were finalized. Just like I had told her, she got nothing. No house, no settlement. She didn't even try to fight me. She knew it would be a waste of time. Ethan, true to form, had disappeared. He didn't show up at the office again. His name vanished from our business overnight, thanks to a few well-placed legal moves. As for me, I didn't look back. I didn't waste time wondering if I had done the right thing. I didn't lose sleep over the past. Because Lauren had been right about one thing. I was a man who fought for what mattered. And I had decided, without a shadow of a doubt, that she didn't. Not anymore. I took a deep breath as I stepped out of Alan's office, letting the cold air fill my lungs. The world outside moved on like nothing had happened. Cars rolling by, strangers walking past with their own stories, their own betrayals, their own victories. But inside, I felt something I hadn't in a long time. Relief. I had spent the last few weeks unraveling the mess Lauren had left behind, pulling apart the lies she had woven so carefully. But now, the dust had settled, and I was standing on the other side of it. Alone, maybe, but not broken. Lauren had played her game and lost. She had gambled everything. Our marriage, our life, her own security, on a man who saw her as nothing more than a quick payday. And now she had nothing. Ethan? He was gone, probably halfway across the country by now, looking for his next target. I could have chased him down, could have spent my energy making sure he paid for what he did. But I didn't need to. The way I saw it, he had already lost. A man like him would always be running, always be looking over his shoulder, waiting for karma to catch up. And I had no doubt it would. As for me, I was moving forward. I walked to my car, my footsteps steady, my mind clear. There was no sadness, no lingering bitterness, just a quiet certainty that I had done what needed to be done, that I had made the right call. When I reached for the door handle, my phone buzzed in my pocket. For a split second, I thought it might be Lauren again, making one last attempt to pull me back in. But when I glanced at the screen, it was a number I didn't recognize. I hesitated, then answered. "Hello, Mr. Carter?" The voice on the other end was unfamiliar but professional. "Who's this?" I asked. "My name is Daniel Kent. I work for a private investment firm. We have been following your business for some time, and we are very interested in discussing an opportunity with you." I frowned slightly. "What kind of opportunity?" "A buyout," he said smoothly. "A very lucrative one. We believe your company has significant value, and we'd like to make you an offer that might just change your life." I leaned against the car, processing his words. I had built my business from the ground up, poured years into it. Selling wasn't something I had ever considered. But now, for the first time, I wondered, what if this was my way out? My way of closing the door on the past entirely and starting fresh? "Tell me more," I said. And just like that, my life shifted again. Not because of betrayal, not because of heartbreak, but because I was ready for something new. Something bigger. Lauren thought she had taken everything from me. She had no idea. Because now I wasn't just walking away from her. I was walking towards something better. And this time, I was the one in control.